What's going on, guys? Welcome in, welcome in. What's going on? If someone could just give me a quick little mic check. Let me know we're good. Ching, I really did not trade much today. You probably heard me that I was not on live today. I just cashed out on an overnight swing. But I did not necessarily take any kind of day trade today. If you pretty much saw, I wasn't on live for most of the day. I was kind of busy. So I had some family matters to pretty much attend to today. So I kind of missed most of today's price action. Obviously, I know that today was just, kind of a brutal meltdown that we had. And so that's where I just felt like, I should have came on live, kind of gave you guys a little bit of a rundown as to why we saw such a flip of the script here compared to what we saw with yesterday. And that's why I kind of felt like, I should pretty much come on live here, pretty much give you guys a little bit of a rundown, what you saw in comparison to what yesterday's price action was. And then I'll just pretty much briefly see if any tickers that you guys basically wanted to have me take a quick look at. But today's price action was just beyond wild. I think the range that we traded on today was pretty much exaggerated to the downside. That was not a pretty price action. And that's why, again, I basically just wanted to touch bases as to why we basically saw what we saw in terms of price action compared to what yesterday was. And so, as everyone kind of trickles in here, I think some more traders are pretty much trickling in. Let me just see if I tagged everyone. Quick second here. See if I tag everyone real quick before I start into, and then I say, some can come in and say, I kind of missed it. All right, so we should be getting everyone in here that's wants to be present. But yeah, again, Ching, I didn't really trade today. I just pretty much took the trade idea that I posted yesterday. I mentioned that I was gonna buy Apple puts yesterday. Roughly around 165 half was the spot that I was watching yesterday, if you remember, and I ended up picking up the 165 puts yesterday. So that's what I ended up swinging into this morning. I cashed it out pretty early on. But the smart thing was that, and I kind of mentioned it this morning when I told everyone that it was currently in the money. Those 165 puts went in the money. I was like, keep a runner. And as you saw, the pretty much the exaggerated move to the downside. This is why we keep runners. So instead of pretty much risking the fact that Apple would have reversed on me this morning, I kept a runner and I was able to pretty much just hold that and cash it out around lunchtime. Granted, the fact that I still think I sold it early, but that was the benefit of having more than one contract, buying out of the money, and then being able to lock in my profits and let my runners just run. All right, and that was basically all I had today. I did miss quite a bit of shorts. I missed a continuation on Tesla. That was a hell of a reversal that it picked up. That was a beautiful one. I should have. I wish I would have caught the Amazon drop today on what 200 and something dollars. I think today on that drop, that was gorgeous. But back to my main point that I pretty much wanted to highlight, and this is really why I think everyone pretty much was like, why did we see such a flip yesterday compared to today? What we ended up getting yesterday is that yes, Powell gave the market what it wanted to hear. He gave us the fact that we were not going to get a 75 basis point rate hike. And that was what the market wanted to hear. That was really the impulse that started that parabolic move that we saw yesterday. But now, as the market's digesting what he said, the terms and the conditions of the overall market, what that basically pretty much implied is that the Feds are basically behind what inflation is currently standing as, right? It's just that that rate hike that they're pretty much proposing below 75 basis points right now is that it's not going to be enough to pretty much tackle inflation. That's really where you saw was the caveat overnight here. And that was the flip side of what we saw was our downfall today. Market, yeah, they got yesterday. They got that quick little impulse off of Fed Powell's statement that pretty much the Feds were not considering a 75 basis hike, and now that pretty much puts them behind inflation right now in the pretty much big picture is what I would say, and that's why we saw that was our downfall. And I pretty much came on live here. I was watching to see if we would get that 431 mark and then collapse, but we saw that immediate collapse once the jobless numbers came out, and we saw that pretty much just be another trigger because we heard Powell also say yesterday that jobless claims should be going down. What did we end up having today? I think it went up roughly about 10,000 today. that was another trigger that pretty much said that inflation was pretty much a little bit more out of control, that they were not doing the rightful job, and they're kind of losing their edge in all of this. Is the bigger picture. All right. So I said 431. We didn't even get up to that level. In terms of my downside targets, I think I mentioned yesterday I was watching 424. That was already tapped by roughly around pre-market before the open, and then next level was 420. When we lost 420, that pretty much was just where your onslaught took place. And that escalated pretty quickly. And I'm sure Avery highlighted that this morning, that we could range down pretty far. And we went pretty much, as you see the body of today's candle on SPY, we literally just stopped right at dead spot into my zone here. Right around that 413 half mark is where we were just sitting at. So what are we going to tomorrow pretty much, right? What I'm going to look for tomorrow is to see if we can at least get back up towards 415. If that gives us a nice little dead cat price action. If we get up to 415, I think that's the spot where I think shorts are going to start piling back in. Those that sold and took their profits today, we're going to see them reload at that 415 spot. And that's going to be our downfall, in which we're going to pretty much look towards this gap fill here that we have on SPY, which has been ultimately this 403 spot. Never ending. This gap fill feels like it's just haunting us for the past, I want to say, few weeks to few months now. That gap fill is just haunting us. And now it feels like, we finally have that trigger to pretty much get continuation on this downfall. And that's where I'm expecting to get to this gap fill, whether it be tomorrow, in which we see more onslaught continuation from this, or that goes into next week. So I gotta say, and this is why I kind of didn't hold my Apple puts, and I feel like I sold early. There's no way of knowing where the range is in particular, because today's range pretty much felt pretty darn wide. The fact that Apple went up $7 yesterday to drop nearly about $9 today was pretty drastic. If you would have had told me that Apple was gonna drop $9 today, I probably would have said that it would have happened by the end of the week, not within one single day. So that's where I'm like, all right, I feel like we already have my directional move towards where the gap fill is at that 4-3 mark. It's just a matter of how quickly are we going to get there. And this is one of those times where obviously the directional move that feels like it's lying ahead of us, but you want to buy yourself time. All right. So don't try to push it with a 0 day tomorrow. Don't try to press into a short like that on a 0 day tomorrow going to a Friday. But I would say give yourself time. At least don't try to do 0 day. Do it next week expiration would be what I would say. All right. And that's pretty much my big insight. What I pretty much wanted to say in terms of pretty much coming out to live here today, because obviously I was pretty much absent for most of the price action today. I saw some highlights of some numbers, and I was like, wow, that's pretty drastic. Tesla down, I think, about $70 at one point. Amazon down about 200 and some change, I think, which I'm about to glance at my watch list right now. But that was some drastic range that we had today. But what a hell of a flip from what we had in terms of yesterday. And that's why hopefully those of you that follow me on the trade idea that I proposed yesterday on Apple, we smacked that 50-day SMA. If you guys actually remember, I came on live here yesterday and I said we were right at that 50-day SMA on the daily for Apple, and that's when I decided to pretty much pick up puts on that. And I actually ended up pretty much averaging down once we started break over that 50-day SMA, and I ended up swinging that, cashed out pretty beautifully right into the open, right? So that was just a beautiful trade. It felt like it was a little bit too fishy that we were overextended yesterday. And again, I didn't expect this kind of downfall in terms of exaggeration to the downside, but that was a hell of a reversal, and it felt like it was pretty much warranted. And the fact that the market pretty much feels like the Feds are behind what inflation currently stands at. All right. So hopefully that can kind of give you guys a better insight. Kind of hold yesterday into your calls, and you're like, maybe it might be good to swing, and this is the bottom. Next thing you know, you wake up this morning and Nasdaq is about down about 100 and I think 60 odd points at market open. Not a beautiful sign. So hopefully those of you, you cut your losses pretty quick. Kind of hope no one actually held through all of this, but that was pretty brutal. I gotta say that. But other than that, let me take a peep. What damage was really done around here? So yeah, Amazon's down about roughly around $200. Damn, Tesla went down about $80. I thought it was only down 70. That shop downfall, and I think the shop cloud alert today actually finally pretty much failed. I believe we're roughly right now the record stands we're roughly around 6 out of 8 on cloud alerts for shop right now. So we're still standing in good shape. I mean, obviously the cloud alert was roughly around an 80% win rate. So we're still standing in good shape right now. And then the fact that obviously I felt like it should have dropped following in with the market direction. It felt like you would lean into that and it would be a beautiful short. Maybe tomorrow's that day where we see the downfall, but it is what it is. So hopefully those of you that you pretty much cut your losses pretty quickly, and this is why you still have to respect having a stop loss. Is what the bigger picture is. All right. So that one I did miss. Other than that, I think that was pretty much all that stood out to me. The Facebook drop was pretty drastic. That was a hell of a flip of a script that we ended up sitting at. Let me take a peep at the weekly real quick. Is the weekly standing at anything? Yeah, we couldn't even make it up to the 200-day SMA to pretty much retest that 200-day on Facebook weekly. We ended up rejecting it. Let's take a peep at the 4 hour. Yeah, once we ended up, we tried to find some support right around that 50-day SMA. We couldn't even hold support at the 50-day, and that was pretty much just an onslaught right there as well. So, not pretty price action out of Facebook. That was just brutal. In terms of Tesla, and this may be one that catches my attention tomorrow, because what I actually noticed was that when I checked in the middle of the day, is that what we could be forming here in the swap, I'm going to kind of outline really quickly, is that you may be forming a head and shoulders here on Tesla. This is something that you might want to particularly pay attention to. So this little head and shoulders action might be our little bit more so of our downfall here right now on Tesla. You might want to keep an eye on this one here. We dropped right into my support level that I was watching here, that 850. Well, yeah, 858 level was the level I was particularly watching. Below that, you want to keep an eye here. Below 838 will be the next level. 837 to be more specific is that spot that you want to keep an eye on. 837, below 837, I think 800 puts do pretty much damage here, and that'll be a beautiful short on Tesla here. So that'll be pretty much, if I wanted to say, that likely might be end up being my 0 day. Obviously, that's pretty much a high risk for a 0 day, but Tesla might end up being that 0 day for me tomorrow, in which I would love to see this start to trade down towards that 837 mark, and we'll see if the market, the selling pressure in the market, pretty much exaggerates that selling pressure down towards the 800 mark, in which that'll be my potential target on Tesla here. All right, so that'll be one I'll keep an eye on. As I was mentioning, Apple I do believe still has more downside. I still have Apple coming down to that 150 mark. That's where I'm gonna be watching for it. Once it breaks the 850 mark, I would expect a dead cat at that point. And then once we end up pretty much retesting here, which you'll likely get a retest back up towards 154, that'll likely be my next major short that I'm gonna have, and it's gonna be on Tesla. So 150 remains my target on Apple. Once we get down to the 150 level, I'm expecting to bounce to 154, and 154 level will be where I particularly look to get into a pretty strong short with a good sized position on that. So 150 remains my target on that one. Do I expect that to end up smacking tomorrow? No, I don't. If I were to say where we're particularly going to be looking for support on Apple tomorrow, I think we press down to the 152 low is where I would particularly be looking at in continuation on Apple downside here. All right. And that's granted the selling pressure continues overnight here. Okay. So that's what I'll pretty much be watching. You did not see this dump today. Sucks. Randy, and this is why it's important to pretty much pay attention to ideas. I mean, I mentioned the short that I was holding in Apple, and obviously Apple short was relatively cheap compared to some other names in the market. The Apple short, I think it was about a buck something out of the money when I picked it up. It was like about dollar, $150, I think, for one call, for one put on Apple. That was not that bad for that. So I think that was relatively cheap. It was pretty much a low risk, high reward type of play. Did I expect it to be that much of a high reward? No, I did not. But that was just beautiful. The fact that it went in the money, right into the open, and you were able to pretty much cash out pretty quickly and feel safe about that. All right. So that was just a beautiful, pretty much picture perfect play that I ended up having today. Other than that, again, Tesla will likely be the one on my radar. I'm gonna see how much more damage we can do with AMD here. This is another one that's, we had phenomenal earnings, but we see what AMD ended up doing to the downside here. I'm gonna watch to see what AMD does if we get some more reversal. The big level that I was particularly watching here was under this 89 mark. Under 89, I think this is going to trade to 85 pretty quickly. That's what I'm going to be looking at in terms of AMD. So Below 89, I'm watching 85, and those 85 puts will likely be more so. Uh, I would pretty much, to be safe, likely next week expiration. I wouldn't go in on a 0 day with 85 puts. So likely 85 puts will likely be a swing going into next week. Would be my play on that one. All right. What do I think in terms of platinum, gold, and silver? I know that silver has actually broken its uptrend overall. I think I remember Avery mentioning that. Excuse me, just because I know that he was pretty high on silver, and as we see right now, it's not holding up. Typically we would think about the fact that gold, silver, platinum, these would kind of be your safe haven right now in the broader market. That is not exactly how it's reacting right now. Pretty much everything is feeling like it's just vulnerable to this broader market sell off. Even as you saw Bitcoin, nice little reversal here today with crypto in the general aspect, nothing is pretty much feeling like a safe haven right now. If you really wanted to say something that I kind of feel a little bit more comfortable in terms of treating it like a safe haven, it might be the energy sector. That might be the one bright spot in which I would say, if I had confidence, that might be the one area in which I want to kind of hide my money in. It would be the energy sector, not necessarily these miners per se. All right, that would kind of be my best, pretty much, solution in terms of that, wise and fun fox. All right. So that's what I would pretty much say. Again, tomorrow, let's see if we get the dead cat. That's what I'm gonna be looking at in terms of spy. We get the nice little dead cat, and then we can pretty much short this right back down. That'll be a beautiful spot here, right at that 415. We take it right back down tomorrow, and then we potentially look to see if we can take out today's low of that 409 half, and then we're gonna be looking down towards this 405 mark, and potentially, I want to say Monday or Tuesday. I think we're looking at gap fill. I think honestly we're looking at that 4-3 gap fill likely come Monday or Tuesday. That'll likely be where we're gonna end up seeing this downfall likely take happen, and that big psych level of that gap fill is gonna be taken out. All right. Can I look at PAA? It's a pipeline company that looks good fundamentally, but I don't know technical analysis well. Let me take a peep at it. PAA. I have not looked at this ticker. But let me take a look at it. All right. So let's see what we got. I'm gonna take a look at the weekly real quick. I think weekly will likely give me a little bit more of a better image here. So one thing I noticed is that you have a nice little. I don't want to say it's a bear flag necessarily, but you have a nice little flat top going on right now, and then you have a little bit of a trend line support that you're sitting at right now as well. So if I were to draw this out, it's particularly what you're particularly looking at right now. So I kind of zoom in on it right now for the weekly. This is what you're basically faced with, and I'm not going to use the wick. I'm going to try and see if I can go straight down to the body. Give you a little bit more of a better fundamental here, a better technical right here. Is that you're sitting right into a nice little, I want to say it's an ascending triangle rather than a bear flag off of the weekly here. So the way I would pretty much look to approach this right now, and this is pretty much be how I would look to trade this out of, is that I'm looking to see if you get the break over here. You get a break over 1120, a break over 1120, then I would look to go long on this. 1120, and you're looking to take this right into resistance at the $12 mark. Pretty much on the dot would be $12 would be your resistance. And then that'll be the determination factor. Do I want to end up taking profits into resistance and risking the fact that it pretty much ends up rejecting? Or you pretty much look to say, I'm going to take some of my profits and look for the rest to pretty much break over the resistance, and you can always add back if it breaks over the resistance over that $12 mark. But $12 looks like that big psych level that you need to break over on this ascending triangle. Otherwise, if you're, and I don't want to say it's going to be a short potentially, but if you're looking potentially for the reversal on the downside here, if you break under 1030, then this may likely end up coming down to support right around this high $9 mark, and you risk pretty much breaking this trend line support that you're sitting at. All right. So that's how I would pretty much particularly look at PAA. Granted, the fact that you said they have great fundamentals, then my understanding would be that you should end up pushing up towards that $12 mark on the ascending triangle here. And then we see if we get that beautiful breakout. And that'll be a bigger reversal that you're particularly looking at. Let me see if there's actually an ideal spot in terms of historically here. What's the big psych level that you're watching once you do end up breaking out that $12 mark? Let's see where that level is. All right. it looks like I was able to identify that level. So that level that you're watching, once you end up breaking out of that $12 mark, you're watching this up towards 14 to 4, yeah, 14 to 14 half is what you're particularly looking at, and that 14 to 14 half also puts you at the 200-day SMA off of the weekly as well, and that'll be where you particularly want to look to see if you secure your profits. All right, and that would be how I would particularly tell you to pretty much approach this. Only thing you're holding is CVS calls for next week, but worried if it breaks below 97, as Avery said, could retest recent lows. Thoughts? Here's my concern right now. In terms of CVS right now, and I've seen this with, I want to say a few names right now. Is that what we would consider value names right now? In the past, I want to say few weeks, few months, that have also acted as another quote unquote safe haven, kind of similar to how, um, Wise and Fox just pretty much mentioned the miners. I don't think that the value stocks necessarily are going to be holding up as well as we think as this market continues to decline. That's my concern about CVS, that I would pretty much say right now. If I were to particularly look in terms of where I would say your support level, in which I want to say is your stop loss kind of thing. I think your level that you're watching here right now is roughly right around here is where you're particularly looking at. So if you pretty much end up breaking that level, that 93.63 spot is the support you're watching right now. That's pretty much the major support level that you're watching is 93 right now. So you do have a little bit room to the downside here if this really wants to continue to range down. 93.73 is where you're going to be end up looking at, and that pretty much puts you basically right at that 50 SMA right now. If it trades down towards that 93, 93.50, 93.63 spot is what you're going to be looking at, Randy. If I kind of dial down, let me take a peep at the daily. Have we broken trendline support, which I think we also have broken trendline support here. See if I get a trendline support. No, I see why Avery kind of mentioned that. So you're kind of sitting right at your trendline support right now. So I see why Avery kind of mentioned that is that he was watching the trendline support to basically hold. So I understand why he ended up mentioning that to you as a particularly a good trade right now. Is that it's particularly looking to hold. He's watching to hold the 200-day SMA off the daily here, which you see is the purple line, and it's right off of trend line support. So that's what you're gonna watch. So if you see on your daily, and this is what I would say, go to your trading view, look at the daily chart on CVS, draw out that trend line support that you see that I just put on the screen here right now, and you're watching 95.44 off of the daily 200-day SMA, and that is what I think that you should use as your particular stop loss on this play. All right, and that's how I would approach this. If you end up breaking below 95.44, I think you cut this and you move on to the next play. All right, I think it's as simple as that. All right. But hopefully that kind of gave you a better insight there, Randy. I would hope that I kind of helped you out there. All right. But other than that, tomorrow's another day. If you had a bad day, don't feel bad about it. Today was just one of those drastic days. The range today is kind of still stunning to me just because of how much that selling pressure really just fueled the downside right now. And a hell of a reversal compared to what we saw yesterday. All right. Chewy company is starting to look good fundamentally, but it has sold off big time. The ticker is it's a very fast growing company that's starting to make profits. Chewy was actually one of those beautiful names. It was kind of one of my darlings once we had the beautiful run that we had post COVID. And ever since, obviously, we saw the major reverse off of pretty much all time highs. That's when I have not even looked at this thing. It's really just been kind of on the sideline for me with Chewy. In terms of saying a level that I would be watching for this, it will be roughly right around this level. I think that Chewy still has a little bit more room to the downside. I think has about another $3 to the downside. 26 would be that spot that I would say wise and fun. 26 would be the ideal spot. I think is that cushion that I think you can trade this off of. So 26, I want to say 26 down. You could range down if volatility really hits 25 half, but 25 half to $26 is that particular range that I would look to go long on Chewy here right now. Obviously, I kind of love Chewy. I know the fundamentals are there for them. They're starting to pretty much gain a lot of kind of want to say market shift in terms of how fast they're growing. They're starting to pretty much become profitable, and I love that about them. You know, uh, pretty much pets got to eat. My pet even eats out of that. So, I think that this is a beautiful one. 25 half, $26. I think that's where you go long. I wouldn't even mind to even load up shares at that price point, and that's where you particularly look to go long again. All right. But other than that, I think that's I was trying to keep today's pretty brief. I kind of missed a little bit of the price action going on today. I'll see if I get a charting session in a little bit later on tonight or tomorrow morning. Before doing some 0 days tomorrow, but kind of felt like I know everyone's kind of a little puzzled after today's price action. You're kind of like scratching your head like after we just saw what a run yesterday, what a hell of a 360 with today's price action. And again, that was just fueled off of the back end of what Powell said. He pretty much just said there's no 75 basis point rate hike that we're pretty much planning for. He saw pretty much more jobs being acquired. In essence, he saw less jobless claims coming through. That was the flip side of what we saw with the market data that came out this morning. And so what that pretty much says is that the Feds are pretty much behind what the current state of inflation is right now, and hence the fact that that's the market's downfall. All right. So that was pretty much the big takeaway of what I got from between yesterday and today, and that's what I wanted to emphasize to all of you today. All right. But other than that, I'll pretty much leave it at that. We'll keep it at a wrap. I'll see you guys on live tomorrow morning. I should be able to pretty much get on and see some 0 days in the morning. And then hopefully I'll pretty much get a deeper session going this weekend for the newsletter and maybe have some better plays going on for towards next week. All right. But other than that, I'll keep it short and sweet right there. We'll call it a wrap. And again, I'll pretty much see you guys on live tomorrow morning. All right. Appreciate you guys joining. But later, guys.